Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Stitch Sessions. This week, I'm going to show you how I made this really cute and quick cottage coaster. We're all about the outdoor dining this month and summer activities. As you can see, it's simply done using a granny square pattern, except we're not making it a square, we're going to make it a pentagon. That means it's going to have 5 sides. And I call this the cottage coaster because the 5 sides make it look like a little house. So this is perfect to use up your scraps. And as you can see, I've used some of my leftover yarn from the picnic placemat. And you're going to use up approximately, I would say anywhere between 25 to 30 grams, no more than that, for one coaster. So if you want to do a set, then just keep in mind that you're probably going to need anywhere between 25 to 30 grams for each of these. You'll also notice that I made it a solid granny pattern. So the center begins as usual with our granny shells. And then I close it off. And I just did that because I like the idea of having a little bit more depth to the pattern. So this is great for putting down cold beverages. If you've got things like a teak picnic table and you don't want to wreck the wood, or even if you have glass tabletops outdoors, it's just great when you're putting down a cool drink. And of course, in the summer heat, beverages do begin to sweat. So this is a great pattern, and it's made from 100% cotton, so you can just throw these puppies in the wash and you're good to go. You can also take this shape and build it out further to create a hot pad if you wish to. So those of you that saw the hot pad tutorial where we used the star shape, this is not that far off from that either. So lots of options here. So let's get started. Okay, everyone, so in order to make your cottage coaster, as described before, you're going to need anywhere between 20 to 30 grams of 100% cotton yarn. You could use acrylic, but I really wouldn't recommend it because it's going to deal with things like moisture and being out in the elements. So I strongly recommend 100% cotton. So I used a bunch of my scraps for this. So I've got some of the blue and the jute, and I used some of this leftover from the picnic placemat here. So I tend to use the Bernat Handicrafter cotton, and it works fantastic. And for this particular project, I am using a 4.5 millimeter hook. You can certainly use a 5, but I just wanted my stitches to be a little bit tighter. And as always, you'll need a pair of scissors and a darning needle to sew in your ends at the end. So here we go. I'm going to start with my blue color here. And what we're going to do is I like to use, even though it's not fully closed in here, it's just because I didn't cinch it tightly enough. I still have to sew in my ends on this one. But I like using the magic ring for my granny patterns. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start with a magic ring. And then I'm going to chain 1 to secure. Now I'm going to chain 2 more to give me the height of a double crochet stitch. So we're going to be using double crochets here. Once you've chained 3, we're now going to do 2 more double crochets into your magic ring. So you'll yarn over, insert, pull through, yarn over, pull through the first 2, and yarn over, pull through the second 2. Okay. Always, anytime you're working with a magic ring at the beginning, it can be a little testy because there's no real shape taken form yet. So just be patient. So I'm going to do 1 more double crochet. So that forms my first shell. Now with a square, we usually want to do 4 sets of shells. Because we're going to do a pentagon shape, we are going to do 5 sets. So you can see in the center of this circle here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're going to chain 2 to create our corner. 1, 2. Then we're going to do 3 double crochets back into the ring. And that's what we're going to do for 5 sets of these. So here's the second one. And here is the third one. That's our other shell. Now we're going to chain 2. Okay, so we're going to repeat this 3 more times. 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, chain 2 until you have 5 granny shells. So I've got my 5 sections here, and now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull my cinch circle tight to close up my center, is find the top of my chain 3 here and slip stitch to join, and then once you've snipped off your yarn, you're just going to pull through and fasten off. So now we're going to add our next color. So you can see how it's taking on a little house shape here. Okay, so I'm going to set my blue aside and I'm going to introduce my jute. So I'll start with a slip knot here, and then I will start in a corner. I'm going to start with this one here. So I'm just going to insert and slip stitch to join, and then I'm going to chain 3 to give me the height of a double crochet stitch. Now usually what will happen in corners is that we will do a shell, chain 2, and shell. Now the only thing I found, especially when doing this one here, is because I'm doing a solid granny motif, I find that the shell stitching just starts to bunch up here. It's too many stitches. So instead of the typical shell, I'm just going to do 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets. So this counts as 1. I will do 1 more, and I'm just going to try and work over that tail there. And then I will chain 2. And then I will do 2 double crochets back into that corner space. So remember, for a pentagon, we're going to have 5 corner spaces. And we're trying to give off the look. Okay, so there we have 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets. Now what we're going to do here is, instead of moving on to find the next corner, which we would do in a typical granny motif, we want to now go into each of the next 3 stitches here. Okay, now always remember that there is a stitch hidden here right next to where you did the shell. So make sure not to skip that one because it'll throw off your count. So now what we're going to do is 1 double crochet into each stitch all the way across until you get to the very next corner. And that's basically how you're going to work round 2 of your cottage coaster. So I've got 1 more here, and so you can see it's now creating a solid effect there. So I'm going to do this next corner one more time with you. So for round 2, we're going to be placing 2 double crochets, chain 2, and another 2 double crochets back into the same space. So 2 double crochets, and 1 more here, trying to work over that short tail, and then chain 2 and 2 more double crochets back into that corner space. So now you can really see the shaping occurring. Okay, so there you have your corners, and now one stitch into each stitch across, and then your next corner. So then moving on from here, we're going to do the same thing. Now this is where actually I fastened off, so it might be a little tricky to see, but my chain, the stitch I want to work into is actually right there. See that little gap? That's the stitch I want to work into. And then the next stitch here, because you're going to come across this in your work, would be right there. That would be stitch number 2. Okay. And the first one, you'd have to nuzzle in, not there. It's easy to do it there. It's right here. Okay. And then the third one is there, and then you proceed as forward. So go ahead and do that. Finish round 2, and I'll meet you when we're reattaching. We're going to bring the blue color back in. Okay. So 1 double crochet into each stitch until you get to the corner, and work your corners with 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet. And we're coming up to the end of our round here. So as usual, we're going to find the top of our chain 3, which is right there, and we will slip stitch to join and fasten off. So you can see our pentagon shape is really taking nicely. And you'll see now that the stitching, the less stitches in the corner allow the work to sit flatter. And that's the thing with doing solid granny motifs, is you have to take into account that when you're doing the typical motif, there is a lot of spacing here. So it does allow for the work to sit flatter much easier. So just keep that in mind when you're doing these motifs. If you wonder, how come my work is bunching up? You are actually dealing with many more stitches than usual. So, which brings me to round 3. So we're just fastening off here. And for round 3, I think, so I'm going to use a slip stitch to join. Sorry, I'm going to use a slip knot to begin. And again, I am going to, actually this time I'm not going to start in a corner. This time I'm going to start here. I like to change things up a little bit because I don't want the seam necessarily to be obvious. So sometimes I won't always start in a corner if I'm doing a solid granny motif. So I'm just going to start here and slip stitch to join, chain 3 as usual to create the height. Whoops. And now I'm just going to double crochet once into each of the next few stitches until I get to the corner. So basically the formula is the same now. Essentially we are doing 1 double crochet into each stitch. But for round 3, the corner situation will change one more time. And that is because this time, instead of 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets, I'm going to do 1 double crochet, chain 1, and 1 double crochet. So again, this is creating my corner, but it's allowing my work to naturally sit flatter. So just done 1 double crochet, I'm going to chain 1 and 1 double crochet into the corner. Okay, so now you've got something that looks like this. Many people will do this differently. This is how I do my motifs when I'm doing it in the solid fashion, okay? Just allows my stitches to sit nicely. So remember, coming out of any corner, that first stitch is hidden. You might think that this is the first stitch, but in reality, the first one. So remember, you're going into the very next stitch. Now, because I only did 1, the first stitch isn't as hidden as the others tend to be in the other corners. So right away identify that, and I'm just going to double crochet 1 into each stitch all the way across. I'm trying to work over my tail there until I get to the corner, and then I will do the same thing. 1 double crochet, chain 1, and 1 double crochet. Okay, so in the previous row, you had done in between the corner, we had done 1, 2, 3 stitches. This one is going to end up being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stitches on each side. So, and then you'll do your usual corner situation. I'm just going to take you over to this corner here. I'm just going to try to work over that tail as well. So sometimes this gets a little funny here because we're trying to figure out where the actual stitch is compared to where the slip stitch to join was. So that's actually the stitch. So I'm going to insert my hook into there. It's most likely going to be a bit snug, so just have a bit of patience. Sometimes I kind of have to go in a little bit backwards there. Oops. There we go. And then the very next stitch is going to be here, not where we slip stitch to join. Okay, now we're into our next corner. It is 1 double crochet, chain 1, and 1 double crochet. And the rest of the round will continue as follows so that you keep it nice and solid in the stitching. So go ahead and do that. I'll meet you at the end of round 3, and round 4 will pretty much be the same. Okay guys, I'm just coming up to the end here of my 3rd round, and I'm just going to find the top of my chain 3, which is right there, and I'm just going to slip stitch to join, and then I will fasten off and be done with round 3. So there you can see it's really taking shape, and it's sitting much flatter now that we're only doing 1 in each corner, 1 double crochet. So let me just snip this off here. And now we just need to do round 4 to finish off our coaster, just like this one. So I like this size because it can certainly fit a cup or even a travel mug or a mug. So this is a good size. Okay, so the last round, I am introducing back in that cool azalea color. That's what it's called, the Bernat Handicrafter Azalea. Okay, so just like the other row, actually this is an exact replica of round 3. So if you actually wanted to make this into a larger motif, like let's say maybe you were working on this for a blanket project or something like that, you can certainly make it larger. You would continue on in this fashion now by doing only 1 double crochet in each corner, chain 1 and 1 double crochet. That's what I would recommend so that it sits nice and flat. Okay, so I'm just going to get you started one more time here. So I like to start a few stitches before where I fastened off anytime I'm doing one of these motifs, because then I'll just work over that short tail nice and easy there. Okay, so I'm going to start right here, and I'm going to slip stitch to join, and then I'm going to chain 3 to begin. Sorry guys, I don't know why the lighting here is giving me a hard time. There we go. So chain 1, 2, and 3, and then I'll proceed as usual, go into the very next stitch and do 1 double crochet into each stitch all the way across, and Now remember, this is the one that we fastened off, so the actual stitch is right there. Might be a little snug. And I'm just trying to hide my tails here. Double crochet. And then the top of this stitch here is nestled in right there. So don't be fooled into thinking that it's sitting where that knot is, because remember, that was the top of the chain 3. So this top of this stitch is right in here, and it can be a little tricky. So sometimes I put the hook in backward like that just to kind of secure the opening of the spot, and pull through. And then you just continue on, okay? And again, we're coming up to the corner, so we are going to do 1 double crochet into that chain space of your corner. We'll chain 1 and then do 1 double crochet. Okay, and so that's your corner. So basically it's a V-stitch. The V-stitch consists of a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. So this is an exact repeat of round 3. And remember, sometimes this stitch is hidden here, so we're going to make sure we find that stitch there. Then we continue on as we normally do. 1 double crochet into each stitch, and then we do a V-stitch in each corner. And then our cottage coaster will be done. So I'm going to let you loose, and I'll meet you up when we are done the finished product. Okay guys, and we are coming up here to the very end. I'm just looking for the top of my chain 3. I'm inserting and slip stitching to join, and we are done. Just going to snip my yarn. And then I'll just have to sew in this end. And here we have it, the cottage coaster. And I love the fact that I was able to use up some of my leftover cotton yarn. And this actually looks quite 4th of July-ish now that I think about it. But this is fantastic. You can make a whole bunch of these. You can make a set of 6, set of 4, however many you need, and it's just perfect. And you can see that this second time around now, by only using kind of the V-stitch technique in the 3rd and 4th row, that it naturally helps the work sit flatter on its own. This one is, but it would probably need a little bit more help with blocking. But there you go, everyone, the cottage coaster. Easy peasy. You can whip these up in a day, really, if you wanted something to do, or if you had, you were looking for a quick project. This is short and sweet, and as long as you know your double crochets, you are good to go. So I hope you've had fun crocheting along with me these cottage coasters. And if you have any questions, you can always pop me a comment down in the comment box down below, or you can pop me an email directly at info@crochetcrafty.com. And remember, if you haven't already subscribed, make sure you click that subscribe button so you'll always stay up to date on all of our free tutorials, and click that notification bell so you'll always be notified every time we upload, which is every Wednesday. In the meantime, happy summer, happy crocheting, and we'll see you guys next time.